Hi guys, good evening and welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host Eddie, and in tonight's video I'll be discussing what I thought of the latest installment of the hit horror franchise, The Exorcist. We got the sequel that was 50 years in the making, almost to the date, in the form of The Exorcist Believer, which came out in theaters starting tonight. I just got back from a screening of it. Really liked it. Before I get into all of that, of course, please be warned that this is obviously a spoiler-filled review. So if you plan to see The Exorcist Believer this weekend, do not keep watching or listening to this video, as I will be discussing spoilers, plot details, character deaths, all that jazz. That being said, you have been warned. Spoiler warning is issued. Let's dive right back into it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It took me a while to get into this movie. I mean, I was into it from beginning to end, but it felt like the first half was a bit of a slow burn for me. There were interesting moments sprinkled throughout, but the first half felt like a bit of a slow burn to me, but then as it crept closer to the second half, and once Chris McNeil was reintroduced, that's when things started to get more and more interesting and more engaging and a bit scarier as well. You know, it had a few little jump scares here and there that got me pretty good. But honestly, some of the things that startled me weren't even necessarily meant to be scary. Like the opening scene of the two dogs fighting each other, and without warning, you suddenly hear a dog going, you know, trying to rip into another dog. That part got me good because it was complete silence, the Universal logo, and then it cuts to two dogs fighting, and it's like, yeah, you know, you're kind of like, yeah, you know, because it was two dogs fighting each other. And then another scene that got me is that before the horror begins, it's like Victor goes to grab his trash can at the end of the driveway, and he's dragging up his driveway, and that startled me as well because it was completely silent. And next thing we know, it's like roll, just like scraping the wheels against the pavement of the driveway. And I was like, yeah, you know, because it's just like loud, brief moments after long periods of silence just get you, you know. And then when Chris and Victor went to the hospital and they saw Angela in her room, and then she suddenly appears behind the glass, startling them both, that gave me a good jump as well. So the movie did have its scary moments. I was hoping it would be somewhat scary, but it was more entertaining to me than it was scary. Like, it didn't feel near as scary as, like, Insidious the Red Door. That shit was scary. Whew! From earlier this summer. But I still really enjoyed The Exorcist Believer because it took me a while to get into it, but as soon as right before the exorcism itself was performed, that's when things started to get really interesting with, you know, the bringing in all the faiths and getting them all involved in the exorcism and getting Victor and the other parents on board and whatnot. You know, so that made it good. And then once the exorcism began in the second half of the film, leading all the way up to the ending, that's when I was most interested or most captivated. I was like, okay, good. Now we're getting somewhere. This is getting really good, and it was really good from that point on to the end of the movie. And I was shocked with the big reveal or the twist that the demon revealed. That Victor apparently chose to save his wife instead of his baby after the earthquake left in Haiti when they were vacationing in Haiti. And I think they were supposed to be there during the Haiti earthquake of 2010 because it said Percy, Georgia, 13 years later, meaning this movie is supposed to take place in the present. That means that they were there for the Haiti 2010 earthquake. And I guess he chose to save his wife over his baby girl, but the baby ended up surviving. The wife ended up dying anyway, and I guess he's been living with that secret or just unknown fact for all these years, and whether or not his daughter heard it or realized it while she was being possessed is another story, so we'll see how that plays out. But that was an interesting twist. Did not see that coming. And I also was a bit blindsided, pardon the expression, I was a bit blindsided when they took out Chris McNeil's eyes, because I was like, oh no, they just brought her back and now they've blinded her. Is she going to sit out the rest of the movie? Thankfully, she didn't. However, her role wasn't nearly as prominent or as big as I was hoping it would be. You know, they brought back a legacy character from the original classic movie, and I thought she would play a pretty big role for the rest of the film, but then they kind of sidelined her after she got her eyeballs impaled out by a possessed Catherine. However, the thing that made up for it, despite her lack of presence throughout the film. Now, thankfully, you could still feel her presence throughout the film, and she's still in the movie. But the thing that made up for it was in the very ending. And I thought to myself, no, are they going to do it? Is it going to be her? Is it her? It's her, is when Reagan appeared at the end of the film, played by the one and only Linda freaking Blair, came back in a cameo appearance to reunite with her mother after God knows how many years apart, after their falling out, after their Exorcist encounter. And so now she's back re-entering her mother's life, most likely because she heard about her mom getting blinded by a possessed girl. So that was an unexpected but very welcome surprise, and oh so satisfying and surprising. That was great. And that made up for what I felt like was my only gripe about this movie, was how quickly they sidelined Chris McNeil right after they just brought her back, and they then blinded her, literally, leaving her pretty much incapacitated for the rest of the film. Even though she still appeared throughout the film, she didn't really or couldn't do much. However, her reunion with Reagan at the end of the film really made up for that fact. So, and I really enjoyed the exorcism sequence as well. You know, the demons toying and taunting with the parents and the other religious leaders. I liked the sense of the message of the importance of community in this movie. Like, despite losing her eyes, Chris McNeil doesn't blame Victor, and she holds no one accountable. And she stresses the importance of community, whether that's within a religious community or an organization like a church or any organized religion, or just the sense of community where people need other people. Like, bottom line, whether or not we're isolationists or we're social butterflies, we need people. And I liked that they stressed a pretty positive message in a movie like this, because it's easy to get it lost in the context and the horror of it all. But I liked that they stressed the importance of community in this film, because I thought that's a nice message to, you know, relay to people and re-emphasize that it's important to have that in your life, in your community, or just in people's lives in general. So that was a nice touch. And, you know, there was plenty of gore. There was plenty of scary possession moments where the girls were talking in their demonic voices and their eyes looked all scary, and they had black and green bile coming out of their mouths, and there was some minor vomiting and whatnot. Oh, and the priest's death scene was great. Excellent callback to the original with the whole head turning thing like this. And of course, his whole head and neck completely twisted around because the demons did it themselves to the poor guy. Right after he had just rejoined the fight, and agreed to do the exorcism, they fucking killed him. And I was like, damn. So I really enjoyed this movie. It took me a while to get into it, but at the end of it, I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. What did you think of The Exorcist Believer? Were you satisfied? Were you surprised? Were you expecting more, expecting less? Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are down below in the comments section. Have a wonderful rest of your night. The Exorcist Believer is now playing in theaters. Check it out if you enjoy horror, and if you enjoyed the original Exorcist, I think you're going to like this movie. Have an awesome rest of your night, guys. Thanks again for watching. And of course, until next time, what's your favorite scary movie?